Hello.
Hey Andy, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Brian?
Good to see you as always. How's
Yeah, always.
everything in Malaysia treating you these days?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's getting busy because of the, I guess, end of the year, and everyone's kind of traveling and going places and trying to close things up. All right. So, I can hear you pretty well, and I assume you can hear me too.
Yep.
Sounds good. Okay, so a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Uh, as always, so today here, it's Thursday, the 14th of December, 2023, and I assume it's still evening time for you on Wednesday, the 13th, Brian.
Yep. hmm
And so this is going to be the last podcast for the year for 2023 until we start again in 2024.
Believe it or not,
What a
yeah, it's
year.
been a heck of a 2023.
What a year it's been.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so look, the markets have been really interesting, Brian. Like, it's a bit of a roller coaster. There was an announcement overnight, well, overnight for me, but pretty you know in the last few hours for you, on, was it a hold on interest rates.
hmm
Uh,
Yep.
so let's dive into it. What's happening? What's happening on your end, Brian?
Yeah, so we've definitely seen a lot of volatility. We've got Elizabeth Warren, one of the primary congresswomen here in the US, who's trying to add some regulation to crypto, and that's created some volatility. We also just had an inevitable drop due to markets becoming a bit overheated and the FOMO getting quite high. So there certainly has been uh, the most volatility we've seen this week in probably 3 to 4 months or so since we last saw a big drop in August.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it seems so for us overnight, as in the last few hours, it's kind of on the uptake. So I'm sure a lot of our audience is curious to know, hey, what's happening? Is the bull starting? Like, what cycle are we in? And what is going on? So and that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. I can share a few screens here as I always do, and we can go over some of the market conditions during this interesting time. I think it's tumultuous and kind of some evidence on both sides of things as to which way things can turn out. I think that there might be a little more of a bearish case through the end of the year, but we've been wrong before. And really, what we try to do is show the highest probability of any outcome, whether it's a bullish case or a bearish case. But why don't we start here? We do have one that's kind of skewing things. We'll just do one day and just look at the very recent changes. So you can see Cardano has continued to be on a huge run, now over 66 cents, one of the highest points in the last 6 months that it's been in. Injective also has been a very hot asset. Internet computer is up there. SATS has entered the top 100. Beam is up 20% in the last 24 hours. And you can even see the overall market cap is starting to creep up again after this big drop uh, about 3 to 4 days ago. So volume is up again, market cap is up again, and it's really the usual suspects that are among the market cap leaders with Bitcoin, Ethereum. Binance Coin's an interesting story with, of course, the top exchange in the world taking a big reputation hit and CZ stepping down with a $4.2 billion fine. But the exchange is still running. For those who thought it was going the way of FTX, at least for now, there's no evidence that that will be happening. So um, it's really just a matter of how much this altcoin climb can continue after seeing a pretty huge November and even end of October.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a pretty huge November, hasn't it? I mean, FOMO's been strong. volumes are up.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have been watching whales closely. Um, you can see here the actual percentage of supply held by Bitcoin sharks and whales. That's wallets that hold anywhere between 10 to 10,000 BTC. They definitely have been accumulating once again from November 11th until December 8th. We can see they have added a total of about 80,555 Bitcoin collectively, which is a pretty big number. So it shows that they're showing signs of confidence, which, if we go back a year, that has not always been the case. If you look at this bright green line, this is the percentage of the supply that they held. They're still actually down overall in terms of the supply, and they were holding a lot more last December than they are now. But the other thing we look at is Tether, and the sharks and whales have actually been dumping that pretty consistently for about 5 months now, ever since June, mid-June or so. I should say 6 months. So they were holding about a little over 40% of the entire supply then, as opposed to 36% now. USD coin kind of moving down also. So the buying power is a little bit shaky right now in terms of just how much is sitting and waiting to be used by these larger wallets. And that's usually, something like this, right? When we saw this back in March with this huge accumulation of Bitcoin, that was a sign that there's likely going to be some climb. And that's exactly what happened right afterwards in market caps all over the place.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because I think the last time we spoke and we looked at Bitcoin availability on exchanges, I think we were down to like 5% or something, weren't we?
Yeah,
I
it's still
I
quite
wonder.
low on exchanges,
Yeah.
5.5% right now.
Okay,
But
it's
it
still
has climbed,
5.5%.
at least in the last
Yeah.
2 weeks. It's starting to come back up.
Mm.
So there, obviously, it's not surprising considering people want to take profit when
Yeah.
Bitcoin goes on the run that it's been on. So it's
Yeah.
quite normal for Bitcoin to return to exchanges a little bit, but
Hmm.
this is hardly much of a rise when you look at just how much things have fallen over the past, 9 months or so, when it peaked
Hmm.
back in March.
Yeah. And I think that also probably accounted for the quick rise in price because of the availability on exchanges, or their lack of.
Yeah, exactly. If there's less on exchanges, that means there's less risk of a future sell-off. And if there's more, um, on stable coins moving to exchanges, that's a good sign. And this is specifically Tether's top addresses, their top 10 exchange addresses and how much they've held. They're up to about $15 billion now, whereas, we looked just 6 months ago, there was only 8.8 billion. So it's a little less than doubled in terms of the amount of top 10 wallets and how much Tether they hold on exchanges right now. So that's a good sign.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
USDC, that's been more flat ever since the huge drop off back in March. But
Mm.
I like the sign of Tether, and I still think Bitcoin supply and exchanges overall looks plenty healthy.
Yeah. That is cool.
Yeah. And you can also see that the social dominance, let me zoom out. We'll just look at like a weekly scale here.
Uh-huh.
It's still at a pretty healthy range. And I like the look of, Bitcoin still being talked about at a pretty normal rate. Right
Hmm.
here, this was kind of a danger sign because it meant that altcoins were really starting to take over the discussions. And that's generally a sign of FOMO. And like speaking of the sentiment right now, I love looking at the midterm trends, how much people are talking about specific things at any given time. And right now, as you would expect, the CPI just had a big uptick.
Hmm.
Inflation is being talked about a lot more.
Yeah.
And we've got, not as much talk about the Binance drama ever since, the everything went down 3 or 4 weeks ago. But look at the difference between bear market with this big spike that happened right after prices dropped, and then bull market over here, excuse me, it took a big drop. So everyone was talking bull market, while
Yep.
prices were high, and then
Yeah.
prices drop, and then suddenly, oh, we're back in a bear market. And so you can see just how quickly people's minds can change.
Yeah. Or how fickle the average how
Fickle
fickle
indeed. Yeah, I
investors
completely
are.
agree. I also like to check out, this is relatively new on Santiment, but check out the trending tokens right now. We see lots of kind of smallish assets that are trending. And you can even look at our AI summary. We've got a bot that scrapes all of the discussions related to the asset and can figure out exactly why that's being talked about so much. So in this case, COTI, COTI, is trending because there's an upcoming migration to V2, and that's creating a lot of people to chatter about it. And on top of that, I would assume because of this news and that circulating, price is up significantly just in the last half day or so. You also see XNO, another probably relatively unknown asset. It's a new token, and people are talking about its potential value and whether it's a good investment, and price is certainly rising fast. FET, I'm trying to remember what, fetch.ai. So this is an AI token, and clearly it's been rising quickly. Bonk has been a huge gainer and just was added to Coinbase, which is going to give it a bullish effect in most cases. And we talked about Injective, Shiba Inu, the meme coin that's kind of overshadowed by Dogecoin a lot of the time. It's starting to get a lot more attention. But yeah, there's a lot of different stories out there right now and individual tokens that are constantly being talked about, while some of you may just be paying attention to Bitcoin and Ethereum.
This is a really cool feature.
Yeah. I don't know if we have gone over it before on one of our calls, but I love to use it because it's a good roadmap for what kind of news we can talk about. Santiment always tries to focus on what the people are interested in. So if a more unique asset like COTI is suddenly trending, we'll look into it and try to put together an insight about it.
That is very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the subscribers of the Santiment platform, if you want to know what's trending or what's being talked about, I mean, this is the page to be on to find out.
Yeah, our social trends in general, like we really put a lot of work into making sure that they're providing good information at any given time. We could even look at any given search word. So let's say we want to look at any combination of conversations that include buy the dip, or will include buy dips also, in case people are referring to it in the plural. And you can see, obviously, there was this huge uptick right here back when Bitcoin initially started dropping on December 10th and 11th, depending on your time zone. And you'll notice when people start to talk about buying dip, that's not actually when the dip bounces. It's after they stop to talk about it. You can see the discussion kind of tailed off because people gave up and said, oh, I guess it's not time to buy the dip. And then all of a sudden we do see the bounce. So markets are constantly moving in the direction that the crowd least expects it to move. And if you really start to tap into kind of being a contrarian and staying away from like what the herd is presuming about the markets at any given time, you're going to find some really profitable opportunities out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You can even see like Reddit was really heading the charge in terms of buying the dip. And, obviously they gave up. And on the 12th, when mentions of buying the dip got super low, that was actually the time to buy.
That is cool.
Yeah. What kind of other stuff are you guys paying attention to right now, Andy?
Yeah, I think the other thing that the audience might be interested in is probably what's happening? Because a lot of I hear a lot of alt season being thrown around
Sure.
because now that Bitcoin's come down a little bit, or well, it's come back up now, but I hear a lot of alt season. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
if we
have to
just
look
look at
and
the
see.
overall mentions of the words alts, altcoin, or altcoins, check
Yeah,
this out. Highest social volume in the past, however many, 3 months in this case, happened here on December 5th. And guess where markets topped out? Right here at the top, literally right
yeah,
there. Arguably maybe a small climb above that, but if you're looking for a sign of greed, look no further than the overall mentions of altcoins and whether it's alt season, because that's when people get greedy and they say, screw Bitcoin. I want to be able to, you know, make 3 times the percentages in a short period of time by investing in an altcoin instead. So
yeah,
clearly there was some greed going on just about a week ago. And that is very indicative of a time where you can take some profit and feel confident that you're doing so while everyone else is starting to get a little overextended, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I've been looking at the chart, yeah, well, obviously more regularly um, than usual. And Brian, maybe you can help me understand. So I'm looking at the MVRV of Litecoin
Mm-hmm.
because it seems to be in positive territory for a while now.
Yeah, why don't we look at it in this form? So
Yeah,
uh, this is our model that actually shows whether something is semi underbought, semi overbought, and we're specifically looking at the midterm in this case. And
yeah,
Litecoin is kind of in the middle here, showing semi
mhm,
overbought because it has, just like almost every asset in crypto, been on a pretty sizable run over the last 2 to 3 months or so. We can
mhm,
look at it in terms of its actual price chart right here. And we'll change this to candles, which most of you are going to be a little more familiar with. So let's zoom just to the last 3 months, because we know there was a big drop off that started pretty much right after the halving, which,
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, was right around here,
yep,
like late
yep,
June.
yep,
So this is the last 3 months. You can see that prices have definitely gone up. If I just hold the mouse over while holding
mhm,
shift, you can
yeah,
actually see in the top left there, that little bubble that shows me that prices have gone up about 18% in the past
mm,
3 months. Not that amazing compared to the average coin, but it has gone up. And if we look at MVRV, let's just take the 30-day, and we'll also take a long term, like 365-day. Um, we can actually do this a little bit better because I have one that automatically adjusts the axis so that they're on the same level.
okay,
So check this out. So this is the 30-day in orange. And you can see that on average, any addresses that has been active in the past 30 days, it's going to register, whether they're up or down and just how much they're up or down. And when you blend all of those addresses together, we can see that they're up about 1.17%, which is
okay,
essentially neutral.
yep,
In the meantime, the long term is indicating that there's actually some undervaluation going on still because the MVRV is at negative 8.7% when it comes to addresses active in the past 365 days. So, what I gather here is the midterm can really go either way, but the long term shows that it's a better than average time to add onto your position. Now, the reason it's showing as potentially overvalued right now, like most assets, if we look at, let's check out the 7-day, that might be too short term. Let's go 90-day. That's, I think, the other one that it's mixed with. Yeah, so that
mhm,
makes more sense. You can see the 90-day
yep,
average returns are up about 5.5%, not incredibly high. So it's not in any sort of danger zone level of any kind, but it,
Yeah.
it is probably on the shorter time frame. If you're into swing trading, there's a little
Yeah.
risk here. But if you're
Hmm.
into like hodling it for a year or longer, then
Hmm.
seeing that the average trader is down 8.7% is actually encouraging and shows that you're buying when others are in pain, which is kind of the name of the game in crypto, to put it bluntly.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's been pretty interesting for Litecoin because right after the halving, it seems like it's just plummeted. But then when you look at the short term MVRV, I guess the OG hodlers of Litecoin went in pretty hard when it kind of bottomed.
Yep.
So it looks like, yeah. So in the short term, they're still pretty much in the money. Um, yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's been a bit of a disappointment for Litecoin in 2023, if I'll be honest. I know that it went on a run prior to the halving, but even
Yeah.
this run wasn't like,
Yeah.
mind-boggling or anything. It was a steady climb, and then it just really dropped off after the halving. And sometimes the halving will just have a delayed effect. The halving objectively should be considered a bullish sign because it's twice as difficult to continue to mine that given asset, making
Yeah.
each
And
specific asset more valuable. Go ahead.
yeah. And if you look at the on-chain metrics of the hashing, I think the hashing was at an all-time high, and also the number of transactions on the Litecoin network have been pretty high
I'm
as
seeing a
well.
huge, I don't know if this is related, but yeah, on December 7th and
Yeah.
8th, massive uptake in active addresses for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But I think this was probably profit taking. If you line it up with price here and look at
Oh
active
yeah.
addresses, I mean that looks pretty clear, like that there was just a lot of people that decided that was the top for Litecoin, and I guess they have been correct. So
Mm.
that's interesting to see. If we look
And I
at like,
think
go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to say we can look at the breakdown of addresses here, and it's interesting. We actually see there's this big drop off in micro addresses,
Mm.
0 to 0.001. They fell off a cliff. Same with the next one, and then they get kind of normal. So for whatever reason, uh, who knows exactly what it was, the tiny micro addresses just got completely abolished. And you can even see it. We put a post out about this a couple weeks ago, but you can visualize just all of the wallets all together. So what I'm doing is merging just any sized Litecoin address as long as it has at least a tiny nugget of Litecoin in it.
Hmm.
Um, this is on a percentage basis. So actually, let me do it on a number of addresses basis. Sorry. So if I highlight
Okay.
all of these together, and I'm going to hit confirm to merge them all, look at this. Just a massive, massive drop off that occurred,
Yeah.
I think, right before the price fell off. If I overlay it, so this is putting the price on top of the amount of total addresses that have more than 0 Litecoin.
Yeah.
Look at how on December 4th, there was like 9.24 million addresses that
Hmm.
had at least something in it in terms of
Yeah.
Litecoin, and now it's at
Yeah.
7.667 million. It's fallen back to the same levels of May.
Yeah.
So that's pretty striking. And historically, looking at other assets that have sudden drop offs, this is actually a good thing, believe it or not, because it usually is a sign of capitulation where tiny addresses are giving up on the asset and saying, I'm going to liquidate this. I'm going to go into Dogecoin or Shiba or something else that looks more appealing right now to me because it's been rising and Litecoin hasn't. So I give up on it. And that's when you see the larger wallets inherit all of those scraps of Litecoin, which obviously add up to a lot, even though they're tiny
Yeah.
addresses. And then
Yeah.
prices eventually will pump again.
That's it. Yeah.
Certainly not a
That's
guarantee, but just from a
yeah.
math probability perspective, this
Yeah.
is actually
Yeah.
kind of what you want to see, assuming it's from the micro addresses, which it was.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's an interesting take, and yeah, and it is very striking, that drop in terms of addresses or wallets that have come out of it.
Yeah, I don't know the last time it really did something like this. It looks like there was kind of a mini version that happened. So this is what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. It happened in
Hmm.
October of 2022. So roughly 14 months ago, we had a similar phenomenon. And look what
Yeah.
happened right after. This was the bottom.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like literally what? October 18th is when it kind of bottomed out in terms of the amount of wallets. It dropped what? How much? 15% of wallets disappeared.
Wow.
They no longer had Litecoin in them, just in the span
Yeah.
of like 3 or 4 days. And then on the days following, if we just go like the next 2 weeks, or we'll call it next month or so, the price jumped 55% for Litecoin. I'd call that pretty significant. So,
Yeah.
I would not guarantee that that is going to repeat itself. We don't have enough of a sample size of, times this has happened before. But if we're looking at the most recent example, this was certainly a bullish event where a bunch of micro addresses liquidated and then the price took off.
Yeah. 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 That's interesting. That's really, so. If that was 15%, I wonder what the latest one. How many percent the latest one
Let's
would be?
check it out. So
Yeah.
from December 3rd until the 10th, 17.2% of
Pretty
wallets
close.
liquidated. Yep, it's bigger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like the look of that. Who knows if it'll have an impact immediately or down the road? Obviously,
Yeah.
there was a
Yeah.
halving that a lot of people are disappointed about. So the
Yeah.
sentiment is a little low right now. Those are all
Hmm.
good things for the price, believe it or not, for
Yeah.
future price movement.
Yeah.
But of
And
course, it
and
depends
it's
on
it.
Bitcoin
Yep.
being healthy too. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, obviously, and it's interesting when you also look at the BTC LTC chart, because if you look at it long term, it actually looks like, Litecoin's kind of just on a steady decline.
Yeah,
um,
huge drop ever since what,
yeah,
3 weeks ago here.
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think it's the lowest it's ever been in the entire history of Litecoin.
No kidding. Wow, is if
Mhm.
I'm reading this right, uh, oh, that's 20, sorry, that's 2022. But since last year and
Mhm.
change, maybe 13 months ago,
Mhm.
the ratio of Litecoin's price versus Bitcoin is down 64%. That's massive.
That's massive.
But you're right, that could be the historical low. This is going back to 2015. You're totally
Yeah.
right. Lowest ratio
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, you
I
do see
mean,
one other example back in 2020 where it looks like wallets fell off
oh yeah.
roughly, what is this, 33% here.
Wow,
And immediately
33%.
after, at least there was a tiny uptick between the Litecoin and Bitcoin ratio over the next month, where
Uh-huh.
Litecoin gained on Bitcoin about 10.4%. And like, look at this one. This was more of a gradual drop off in addresses. And
Mhm.
then look what happened after 24% of wallets got liquidated. And then at the bottom, at the very lowest point right here,
Mhm.
over the next almost 3 months, Litecoin's price went up 77% versus Bitcoin. So there's some
Yeah.
pattern analysis for you. I love digging into this stuff. I nerd out on it all day.
I would love to pick your brain on on this stuff.
Yeah, let's talk more offline. I'm always happy to. And we can
Yeah,
always make more
absolutely.
videos. But I love talking about this with you, Andy. And the Litecoin revisit is always something I'm interested in, because its importance in the crypto ecosystem is undervalued, and it is the second oldest asset in crypto.
It absolutely is. And I generally feel it's being slept on. It's as it's been around since 2011. It's the oldest. It's actually had 100% uptime. It's never been down.
Good point. I didn't know
And
that.
yeah, and it has they introduced Mimble Wimble, so it's an opt-in I guess privacy, and it's just yeah I think the fact that it is pretty decentralized, and there's no, I guess there's no VCs pushing it, is probably why it's not gaining as much attention. But fundamentally, I feel it's a very strong. I mean, it's pretty much what Bitcoin is. It's just there's 4 times more, and it's faster, and it doesn't compete for hash rate. Obviously, this is definitely not financial advice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's okay. I mean, the way we analyze markets, we basically say, these conditions were bullish before. Do what you want with that information, and our community will do their own research. And if they want to buy based on a metric we're pointing out, we let them know it's not an investment advice for them, but they'll um, be following a pattern that has historically been good if they do so. So
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think are we at that time?
yeah, it looks like it. I probably went even a
Yeah.
little bit over, but I love talking markets with you, and I'm already looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Wishing the audience and yourself, Brian, safe travels during the holiday season. Also, any any final words from yourself to the
Yeah,
audience?
pay attention to just how much FOMO you're seeing right now from the crowd. Even today there was a pretty big market bounce that I saw. It's kind of flattened out at the time of this recording, but earlier today, my Wednesday, your Thursday morning,
Hmm.
there was a pretty big uptick and everyone got super bullish once again. And you actually want to see the crowd doubting when there's a big bounce and thinking that it's a bull trap, right? Because those are the
Yep.
times where prices will continue to soar because people are not buying into the hype. So pay attention to the level of positive comments versus negative comments going on, and that can make a big difference in you timing, the markets perfectly and really optimally making the most for your portfolios.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks for those, and that's a great way to end the year with. Also, I think I'll make a bit of an announcement. So Brian, I'm not sure if you're aware. So we're working in the background. So this is to the audience who are in the region. Work in the background with Max to try to get him over here to talk data, to talk about using Santiment as a platform on how to analyze using on chain metrics, using sentiment analysis, and yeah. So hopefully we'll have him here in person next year. We'll reveal more as the as the dates get closer. But yeah.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I always love when our founder is able to contribute to the great work you guys do. So I hope that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Well, again, wishing the audience and yourself a safe and happy holidays during the Christmas and New Year's season. And it's been a great year, Brian. Like having you on every month, and looking at the data and trying to interpret what the markets are going to do next and what's been happening. It's been an interesting year. It's been an exciting year. If I think if we look at just the price of Bitcoin, if you had gone in at the beginning of the year and you are where you are now, you'd be up 130%, maybe something like
Yeah,
that.
it's huge.
Yeah, so yeah, it's huge, right? Compared to say, the NASDAQ or something like that. So it's exciting. I feel that the obviously on the we looked at the data earlier, and there were talks about the bull market, then it's the bear back, and so on and so forth. But I do feel that the investors, the retail investors, are coming back in slowly, and the pace seems to be picking up a bit. The interest seems to be picking up a bit. Remains to be seen what's going to happen in 2024. That's where, so April, I think, right? That's when the Bitcoin halving event is.
Yep.
So yeah, let's see what happens in 2024, and I'll see you and the audience in 2024.
Yeah, looking forward to January and a wonderful 2024 full of more great videos with you, Andy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. Once again, thank you, Brian, and thank you to the audience for tuning in.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.